Hi, my name's Gemma and welcome to my channel and welcome to the season finale of Gemma's Vlogoween. And I'd just like to say thank you so much for 700 subscribers. We made it. We made it for Halloween. I really can't believe we've made this point. Today I'm going to be featuring some of my friends from the YouTube community and they're going to be sharing their scary real life experiences with you. Hope you enjoy this video. I'm going to start off with my ghost story. So my ghost story took place over a period of 2 years. I used to work as a carer and I used to work in a care home, which was a 5-bedroom property somewhere in Chester. Part of my role in this job was to do a sleepover shift where I would go to bed for the night. It was just so someone was there to keep an eye out for the service users. I hated sleeping in this house. It was a really creepy old house. You would hear like funny creaking during the night, which I used to hope was the central heating or something like that. And you'd often hear a sound that sounded like there was somebody walking up the stairs. But again, I just used to think, oh, it's the central heating of the pipes making this sound. The horrible experiences I used to have while doing these sleep-ins was I used to suffer from sleep paralysis almost every time I did a sleep-in there, and this was about 3 nights a week. I would not have this experience at home. It would only ever happen to me there, which was odd really. I would wake up, I would have a horrible dream, which I'll mention later, and then I would wake up totally paralysed and totally frightened. I would also have pins and needles in my wrists, which again, I didn't have that at home and I haven't had it since. Now the reoccurring dream I used to have while staying in this property was of a lady dressed in grey would be coming up the stairs. She was a very tall, thin lady in grey with long black hair. I know it's a typical sort of ghost story, but hey, that's what the dream was. And I would know she was coming up the stairs and I would always be fearful for when she reached the top. Now in the room I slept in, there used to be a spy hole. So if somebody knocked you up during the night, you would be able to look through and see if there was going to be any danger to yourself before you open the door. In the dream, I would always be looking through the spy hole. I would see her coming up the stairs, round the staircase and towards the corridor, down the corridor towards me. Luckily, thankfully, I always woke up before she reached my door. Sometimes in the dream, I would have gathered all of the people staying in the home into the room and we'd all be waiting in there as well, obviously hiding from this lady. This happened for a period, I would say up to 2 years. I just put it down as having nightmares because perhaps I was nervous of staying in this property on my own and the stress of the job, things like that. Didn't really think much of it until one morning. One morning I was everyone had gone, they'd all gone out to their jobs or their day centres and I was locking up the property. We used to have a fire alarm and a burglar alarm which I'd have to set before I left the house. So I was doing that, so I put my bag on the floor and I was setting all the alarms and something made me turn round. Now this was at 10 AM in the morning, so it wasn't in the middle of the night or anything like that. And I looked up the stairs and there was somebody leaning over the banisters with long black hair. I just saw them for a second and as I processed what I was looking, my first thought was, oh, there's somebody left behind in the house. But it was nobody I would recognise, nobody had long black hair. As I looked again, the vision was gone. There was nobody there, there was nobody in the house. Well, I didn't even bother to look because I locked the door and went. I never saw that again. I heard creepy things like people walking around when there wasn't anyone walking, you know, up at the time in the middle of the night, but I never saw anything like that again. Now it was a couple of years later, we'd moved out of that property and we now worked elsewhere, and my colleague Anne, who also did the same shifts I did and also slept in this house, casually mentioned to me one day, oh, remember when we used to work there? I always used to have a horrible dream about a lady in grey with black hair coming up the stairs. She described the exact same dream that I'd had. At first I didn't know whether to say anything. I was like, oh my god, what? This is weird because I had the same dream. She didn't mention ever having any pins and needles or sleep paralysis, but she definitely had the dream a number of times. I never really mentioned it again, and I never mentioned to her that what I saw standing at the top of the stairs. I just thought that was quite a creepy experience for us to both be having the same dreams.
Hey everyone, I'm Minxlaw123 and I'm going to tell you about something scary and spooky that happened to me a few years ago. So I will say that I do live in a haunted house. My house is very, very haunted, and I hope there's not a ghost next to me as I'm filming this. No, it's fine. But in all seriousness, my house is very, very haunted. And basically this happened to me a few years ago. I was on my own downstairs filming some YouTube videos. I was waiting till the house was nice and quiet and I could just get on with my filming of my YouTube videos, right? So I was sitting downstairs. I'd been filming for about an hour or so, and all of a sudden there was this massive loud bang, like a crash bang sound in the kitchen, right? So my mum was upstairs at the time, she was asleep, and I was like, what is that? Like, seriously. So I ran into the kitchen, and literally in the middle of the floor in the kitchen was this massive book, right? So let me tell you about this book. Basically, a few days previous to that, I'd been in the library and looked up some like ghost books because I'm really interested in the paranormal and stuff, right? So I'd got this big book out from the library, and it was something like England's Worst Hauntings or something like that, the most scariest places in England that are haunted or something. So it was this really big, heavy, hardback book, right? And it had a really creepy cover. I remember that the cover of this book was like super creepy. Obviously, with the subject matter, it's not going to be like all pretty rainbows, but it was a really dark, scary looking book, right? Anyway, so yeah, it was that book, and it was laid out on the middle of the floor. And the weird thing is, like, I'd left it in the kitchen, but it was at the back of the kitchen on like the worktop, but it wasn't like hanging off or anything. It was right at the back, like proper at the back, where it would not have like fell over onto the floor kind of thing. And as I say, I'd been filming in the front room for like an hour or so, and nothing had happened. So if it would have been on the edge or something and slipped off, it would have gone like early on in the evening, but there was nothing. So yeah, I just remember being really freaked out because that book must have been thrown off to land where it did on the middle of the floor. Like, there was no other explanation. As I say, it was not on the edge, it was really heavy, it didn't just like slip off. And that bang was literally, it sounded like someone just picked this book up, right, and just threw it really aggressively on the floor. And I remember thinking, you know, the ghosts in my house, because obviously there's spooky stuff happens in my house all the time, the ghosts obviously don't like this book in my house. Like, that's what I was sensing from it, because it just felt very aggressive, the way that it was just thrown like really heavy onto the floor. So what I did the next day, I literally got the book and I just took it right back to the library, because I was like, don't want it in the house, don't want it in the house. So yeah, that was pretty freaky. But there's been so many things that have happened in my house. Like, I could be all night, but I won't be, obviously. But yeah, lots of scary stuff has happened in my house. My fiance has seen ghosts in my house. Like, he's seen the ghost of my granddad. So my fiance never met my granddad because he died before me and my fiance met. But he's obviously seen photographs of my granddad. And yeah, he saw my granddad just standing there like a full body apparition. And that was pretty creepy. In a nice way, but still a bit creepy because my granddad's dead. Also, my fiance saw a little girl ghost in the garden outside, and he said she was like really sweet, about 8 or 10 years old, something like that. Long blonde hair, really kind of sweet and smiling and that. So that was a bit creepy. But yeah, we've had lots of things happen in this house. Lots of creepy sounds, noises, things that you can't like explain. We do a lot of like ghost hunting in our house. So we leave like a camcorder with night vision on in certain rooms at night, or you know, we'll leave our recorder out, see if we can capture any EVPs. Like, we've had lots of things happen, and voices, and like drawers open downstairs in the middle of the night when no one's touching the drawers, obviously, because we're all asleep. And yeah, it's scary, but like I kind of feel comforted that it proves to me that there is life after death. And you know, I'm hoping that it is our relatives that are just like coming through and stuff in spirit. But anyway, that's all I gotta say for now. Enjoy the rest of the video and stay spooky. Happy Halloween.
My name is Nico, and this is my story. I used to live, the last 2.5 months that I lived there, I started having nightmares. I would have this nightmare running through a cornfield. I'd have a nightmare about driving down a scary dirt road by myself. I would wake up all of a sudden and slightly see a hand coming down at me. Now, it was very faint. Didn't think nothing of it, but it was still scary. The next 2 weeks, it kept getting progressively worse. Like, not only was I seeing a hand now I was seeing a figure of a man. Just a shadow. Just a shadow of a man reaching down towards my face. So I would wake my wife up, tell her to get out of the room, and she turned on the light, and there's nobody there. Well, she told me, just having a nightmare. I was like, okay, maybe I was. Well, another 2 weeks go by, and this is happening. Now, this man, I can really see. He is wearing a flannel shirt, and he's an older gentleman. He's still reaching for me. And that's when I really just pushed my wife out of bed, opened the door, ran out, and she's freaking out, not knowing what's going on with me because there's no one there. So this kept happening over and over and over again. And it wouldn't be every night. It may be every 2 nights or every 3 nights, but it was continuous. Then I started sleepwalking. My wife would find me standing somewhere like the living room, looking confused as to where am I? Who am I? Like, she couldn't get through to me. And she would just push me back to the room and lay me down, and I'd go to bed. We finally moved out. Of the house. And ever since, nothing has happened. Well, I have checked in to where I used to live. And, apparently, the house was on a sinkhole. And the sinkhole, about 2 or 3 weeks after we moved out, sinkhole had fully cracked the house in two, and the bedroom that we were sleeping in, the ceiling collapsed right on top of the whole room. Like, the whole ceiling collapsed. We would have been killed if we had stayed there longer than we had. I haven't had any nightmares or anything to do with the flannel man since.
Hey guys, in honor of All Hallows Eve, I'm gonna tell you guys a true story. There's this thing that I once saw. I'm not sure what to call it, but I remember being awakened from my sleep, stirring, uneasy, restless, and when I woke up, I remember already being afraid, as if I woke from a nightmare. And I look out the door into the hallway, and I remember vividly seeing that there was this thing there looking at me from the darkness, but it was darker than the darkness. The thing was like blacker than the darkness around it. Like it stood out in the dark hallway. And on top of all of that, it was tall. It was like 7 feet tall. Like I couldn't really see its head. It was like hunching down, peering into the room. And at first, I didn't really freak out, or I didn't really panic. A little backstory is I grew up Catholic, and in our household we're always talking about angels and demons and ghosts and spirits and, you know, ancestors and stuff like that. So I grew up sensitive. It wasn't like I never felt things before, but this was the very first time I've ever seen one. And that wasn't the shocking part. The shocking part was when it tried to talk to me. It had this like backward speaking, hushed like voice, and I couldn't understand it. I didn't know what it was saying to me, but it seemed like it wanted something. It seemed like it was trying to say something to me. And at that, I froze. I wasn't frozen before, but I froze after I heard it speak and it was talking to me. I tried with all of my might to move, and I could not move. It took all of my will and prayer to shake myself loose from this thing. I mean, I must have been stuck what seemed like 2 minutes trying to move and shake as this thing was speaking to me. And all I wanted to do was jump up and hit the light switch, but I could not, until it came to my mind to go into prayer and use all of my will. And sure enough, I started to rock back and forth, and with all of my might, I swung my arm and I hit the light switch. And as soon as the light flicked on, as soon as I flipped the switch, the creature disappeared. It was gone. No sounds, no nothing. I know there's some things in this world that should not be. I know that there's these things that don't have explanations. And that night I ran into one of them. So, I thought I'd share. Sweet dreams.
Little kitties all beware of fears and fright, spooky scares. Better run with your disguise to run in if you're wise.
Hi everyone on Gemma's channel. I'm going to leave this video short. She said to me, her subscribers, she wants them to send videos in of scary stories. I can't think of any, touch wood I don't. I'm a wimp, so you're probably going to find this video a little bit wimpish, but I can only think of one scary thing that happened to me and my sister about 10 years ago, and it happened one night.
round about October, November, at our old house. We were sat in her room, listening to music, chilling out, and this person, I remember, just suddenly went up to her room with a mask on, like you couldn't see their face, and I remember them throwing an egg at her window, and it was just really, it freaked me out, and I think that was the first time in my life I had a proper, like, panic attack, and, yeah, it was freaked me out. I remember that, like, a guy throwing an egg on the window with like, his face covered up, and we were just sat in her room. It was dark outside, really dark, no street lights on. We were just sat in her room, and this guy just threw an egg at the window, and I remember it, you went like that to the window, and then the egg just went poof, and like that. And I think the only other scary story I can tell you about was this dream I had. And in this dream, I remember being at a train station with a friend, buying a ticket for a train, and then as we were running over this bridge to get to the train, the bridge sort of like gave way, and we fell off this bridge in the dream. And as we were falling, you could hear people like screaming, and as I hit the bottom and the train hit us, I woke up. But that's all I can think of. It's probably not much, but I thought I'd do this for Gemma's channel. Bye.
So I play in a band, and we were doing a little tour, and we were going west. We're from Jersey, so west is probably the only way we can go. And about 6 hours in, our van breaks down in the middle of a highway. So we collect ourselves, we call a tow truck, we get the tow truck, and they're like, where do you want to take the van? And we're like, we don't know the place, what do you recommend? And he noticed that our van was a Chevy. So he takes us to a Chevy dealership, and we thought we were in good hands. So we're talking to the people, and they said, oh, it's going to be like, I don't know, a day and a half for the van to be fixed. We said, okay, do you mind if we just camp out in the van? Like, this is our home for the next few days at least. So we're like sitting in the van, time goes by, and I message the guy, and I say, hey man, I don't think we're going to be able to play the show tonight. Our van broke down. And he says, don't worry, I got you. Where you at? Where you at? And I said, we're at this location. So 20 minutes go by, and he and his buddy come up in two little sedan cars, and he says, okay, grab your clothes, grab your guitars. You don't need drums, but just grab your bare minimums, and we'll cram it all into these cars, and you can still play the show. I said, oh, okay, cool. Where's it at? And he said, the frat house. I was like, oh, all right, cool. So we go, and we split up into twos. So my band is consisting of 4 people, me, my drummer, my bassist, and the other guitarist. And the drummer and I go into one car. The bassist and the other guitarist go into the other car. And already that's a bad idea to split up. You never split up in a location you never know. So we're cramming in, we're getting everything situated, and I open the trunk of one car, and I see a power generator. And it wasn't like this little guy. It was like this big guy. Like, big. It was gas, and it filled the entire trunk. And the kid goes, oh, don't worry about that. I said, okay. Whatever. So we get in the car, and he drives us to the location that I thought we were playing. And we get there, and it's like a city, like townhouses, and like everything's close together. And I'm thinking, how are we going to play here? Like, we're going to be too loud. So we get inside, we're like getting acquainted with everybody. And then about 20 minutes to a half hour goes by, and he goes, all right, everybody, let's go. And they were partying. Like, this is a frat house, and they were partying, if you get what I'm saying. So we get in the cars, and where they were taking us was up these steep hills with like guardrails, and then like it's just straight down, like down. Like if you fall off, you're going down. So they're zipping through these roads, and I'm white knuckling this entire ride. And he pulls up in, this one guy that I'm driving with pulls up into this like dark alleyway, and it's just shrubbery, like dirt road and trees all over the place. And he goes, "All right, we're here." I'm like, "What? We're here? Where are we?" So he's going, creeping along this dirt road next to all this shrubbery, and all of a sudden he goes, "All right, let's get out." I'm like, "Get out? What?" And there's like 50 cars all on this road. So my buddy and I, we travel up along this road next to all these cars, and then all of a sudden we see this giant fire and this abandoned mansion in the middle of the woods. And I look at him and he looks at me, and we're just like, what did we get ourselves into? So we go up, there's this big fire, like 50 kids, not kids, but like adults, like 20s, and we're like looking around. They're like, "Oh, go inside." I'm like, "Go inside? What?" And lo and behold, there's the power generator lighting up a light bulb, and there's amps and guitars and everything that a band would need to play. And we're just looking around, and then we hear skateboards, and in the other room of the house was like a mini ramp and just a bunch of kids skateboarding, and it was so cool. So we played the show in abandoned mansion with a single light, and everything was jerry-rigged, and it was so cool. So after the show, we go back to the house, and we stay there for the night. We call in the morning about the van, and they say, "Oh, it'll be ready in a half hour." So, we did our thing, then we got the van, came back, and my bassist, he's like, "Oh, I'll drive, let's go do something. We canceled the rest of the tour, we gotta go do something." So we looked for a Goodwill or like a thrift store. We were driving around for about 15 minutes, pull into a parking lot, and he goes, "Do you think I should back in?" And I go, "Yeah, dude, back in." So he turns the car around, and as he's turning the car around, someone screams, "Your van's on fire." And I was 6 hours from home.
Hi, my name is Byte, and I believe in ghosts. I had my first encounter with a spirit when I was 8 years old. I remember feeling very chilly, and I remember the air condition wasn't on, the fan wasn't on, and my room window at the time was locked shut, but somehow there was just this cold burst of air that just kept circulating throughout the room. That very same night, I had a dream about a blue orb, and I couldn't exactly see what it was, but I could tell that it was something that was not human, and it was telling me that everything was going to be okay, that it was a spirit and it was looking out for me. I would say in my early teenage years, I definitely started to get more into liking ghosts and wanting to find out more about them, and that's when I actually started to try and do some research about my old house that I lived in, because the more and more that I watched the documentaries, the more and more I was convinced that that house was haunted. I remember one day sitting in my old room, and I had all of the lights off besides some lights that were hanging on the wall. The window was locked shut. There was no air condition on whatsoever. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, the door next to my room just started making this jingling sound. The door just swung open by itself. I went over to the door and I started to try and close it, and it felt like something was literally pulling back at me. I finally was able to shut the door. My most recent paranormal event happened about 8 months ago. The fan remote was all the way on the other side of the room, and somehow the fan just magically cut on by itself. I'm still convinced to this day that there is some kind of spirit that just knows where I am and likes to check in every once in a while.
Round about the cauldron go, in the poison entrails flow. Sweltered venom seeping got, boil thou first in the charmed pot. I see, my next ingredient has arrived. You, my spell, no longer deprived.
I hope you enjoyed this video of the collection of ghost stories from my friends. Don't forget to check out all of their channels. They all have awesome channels, and I'm sure you're going to love them. So don't forget to check them out and hit the subscribe button for them. Give this video a thumbs up, and I hope you're all having a fantastic Halloween night. I hope you've enjoyed vlogoween. I'm going to miss it. I'm going to miss doing daily uploads, even though it's been an awful lot of work. But I will be back probably at the weekend with another video. Unfortunately, it won't be Halloween themed, but do comment down below if you'd like me to do any more paranormal videos or ghost hunting videos, because it is something that I am quite interested in, but I'm just not sure if my subscribers are. Take care. Thanks for watching. Bye.